I'm now joined by Advocate Paul Hoffman in our Cape Town studio to discuss his complaint against Chief Justice Mogoeng. Advocate Paul Hoffman, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, Advocate Paul Hoffman delivered his complaint to the JSC after it became clear that Chief Justice Mogoeng had delivered a speech to Advocates for Transformation at a function where he said all sorts of things to do with transformation. So now is an opportunity to speak to Advocate Paul Hoffman in Cape Town and hear a little bit more what the basis is of this complaint. I'm going to make contact with him there. I want to start, Advocate Paul Hoffman, of course, with Section 177 of the Constitution. Section 177 of the Constitution says that the Chief Justice could only possibly be impeached if he is guilty of gross incompetence or gross misconduct. Please explain to the viewers of the Justice Factor what he did in that speech that amounts to that.
I think the problem with the speech that we have highlighted in the complaint is that the Chief Justice has crossed a line in descending into the arena in respect of issues that are pending before the courts. And it's not necessarily the transformation agenda. It's not necessarily that he is for the line that is punted by the majority of the members of the JSC. It is that he has misconceived his role. He is everybody's Chief Justice. He's your Chief Justice. He's my Chief Justice. He is not the Chief Justice of the majority elements in the Judicial Service Commission who have a particular interpretation of what the law means that is not universally accepted. Once the Chief Justice gets himself into the arena and off the pedestal of the bench where he belongs, he is breaking the rules in relation to what I call the three-eyed judges that we need in our country and indeed in our region. The three eyes are integrity, impartiality, and independence.
Okay, Advocate Hoffman, I agree that those three eyes are important, and if indeed he crosses them, then we should feed him to the lions. But let's look at the textual evidence. I've got the speech in front of me. You are very familiar with it. Can you tell me what sentence in this speech is textual evidence in support of him doing exactly that?
Well, he says that there are people at war, and he basically takes the line that will be taken by the Judicial Service Commission in the pending litigation that the Helen Suzman Foundation has in the Western Cape High Court. Helen Suzman Foundation has taken on the stance, the modus operandi of the Judicial Service Commission. Now, as chairman of the Judicial Service Commission, the Chief Justice ought, because of the other hat that he wears, which is everybody's Chief Justice, he ought to preside over the Judicial Service Commission in much the same way as Max Sisulu presides over
Advocate Hoffman, with all due respect,
sir, the Speaker.
Advocate Hoffman, with all due respect, you are telling me the conclusion of your complaint. You're not citing me the evidence and the premises in support of the conclusion. In other words, you're telling me that the man doesn't have integrity. I'm asking you a simple question, and the nation awaits the answer. Where in this speech does he do what you are saying? What sentence do you want to cite as an example of him, for example, violating the rights of white lawyers, which is your claim in the affidavit?
In the speech, he talks about key operators who have an agenda, and he talks about going to war against those operators, as he calls them. Now, if that isn't a descent into the arena, then I don't know what is, Eusebius.
I think
however you look at it, it's war talk.
I think what will be useful,
the sort of talk.
I think what will be useful, Advocate Hoffman, for my viewers who don't actually know what you are referring to, because you are merely giving a précis of what you feel about the tone of the speech, rather than giving me the textual evidence, even though I'm giving you a chance to. Maybe I can cite from the speech. This is the kind of thing, viewer at home, that Chief Justice Mogoeng is saying. More than 90% of appearances before that court, the Constitutional Court, are white and male. Now, I'd like to ask you, Advocate Paul Hoffman, is Chief Justice Mogoeng factually wrong?
I have not done a study on that. I'm quite prepared to accept
anecdotally,
that,
perhaps?
those statistics are correct.
Then where's the beef if you agree that is anecdotally correct?
No. My beef with the Chief Justice is that the manner in which he has descended into the arena is not a fit and proper way for a Chief Justice, who is everybody's Chief Justice, to comport himself. What he is doing is creating, from his lofty position, an atmosphere that is adverse to the arguments that the Helen Suzman Foundation will put up in its pending litigation. And that is interfering with the functioning of the courts. And if you turn backwards to section 165 of the Constitution, you will see there that the courts are meant to be independent and impartial, and that it is a breach of the Constitution to interfere with the functioning of the courts.
Okay, Advocate Hoffman, I hear you on that point.
The Chief Justice has come down.
I hear you on that point.
Sorry?
In other words, you are now no longer contesting the veracity of what he had to say about the briefing patterns in South Africa when it comes to which advocates, blacks or whites, get the lion's share of the work. You're not contesting who appears before the Court, mostly white males. You are now talking about the manner in which he raises it. But when someone like Justice Edwin Cameron makes a speech that comments on the politics of the day, you don't call for him to be impeached. Isn't it really because you just don't like the guy, as the Black Lawyers Association is saying, the Higher Education Transformation Network? Isn't this just really about personal animus rather than about a solid legal impeachment case?
No, it has nothing to do with personal animus at all. The difficulty that I have with what the Chief Justice has done is that he has descended into the arena of contestation and conflict in the manner in which he has addressed the speech. And as Chief Justice and as Chairman of the Judicial Service Commission, he ought not to do that. What he is doing is wholly distinguishable from what other judges do in connection with issues of politics. What he is doing is running ahead in relation to the outcome of pending litigation against the Judicial Service Commission. What his proper role is to be an impartial chairman of that commission.
Let's deal with that claim. Let's
Chief
specifically,
in the court.
Advocate Hoffman, let's deal with that claim. You keep citing that claim. Can you tell me what is it about Chief Justice Mogoeng delivering this speech that fundamentally undermines the High Court's ability to adjudicate justice in the matter of the Helen Suzman Foundation, asking it for clarity on the JSC's processes? Because where I'm sitting, it's ludicrous to suggest that if the Chief Justice gives fair comment on how he feels about transformation, that it undermines the High Court's ability to deliver a judgment. Do you seriously believe that?
Yes, look, it's not necessary for the purposes of a contempt complaint or an attempting to defeat the ends of justice complaint for the speech to actually change the course of justice. It's quite enough if there is an intention to create an atmosphere which is adverse to the applicant in that pending case.
Okay, and then in 30 seconds...
That is why the Chief Justice needs to be everybody's Chief Justice and not the Chief Justice of a particular faction in the Judicial Service Commission.
In 30 seconds, and you can have the final word. How do you know his intention was to direct what the High Court will do, rather than just, which is his constitutional right to, provide fair comment? How do you know that?
He doesn't have a constitutional right to provide fair comment when he is everybody's Chief Justice. With the power and the privilege of Chief Justice come the responsibilities of Chief Justice. He has to be impartial, he has to act with integrity, and he has to be independent. He hasn't done that in this matter. He's climbed into the arena, and that is why there is a complaint against him.
Advocate Paul Hoffman, thank you for climbing into the justice factor arena. I do appreciate it. I'm afraid that's all we have time for. And after the break, our winner and loser of the week. Please stay with us.